Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much and welcome back, and thanks for choosing the SME Competitive Enterprise panel here in the auditorium. We'll discuss the competitive outlook for SMEs over the next few years and debate how the enterprise ecosystem should go about improving it. And we'll do this with the help of our great panel of experts, and also you, the delegates, both here in person and online. So those of you who attended last year's assembly will remember that our panel gave a brilliant analysis of the responses needed to be made to the government through policy and the businesses, how they work to create a competitive and sustainable enterprise ecosystem. But before I introduce the panel and also our great hosts for the session, let me just give you a little bit of background for the session and the new focus it has this year. Because the motto of this year's SME Assembly is, as I said earlier, Successful SMEs, Competitive Europe. And it really captures the essence of Europe's economic mission. And that is to stay competitive and safeguard prosperity and freedom. And in order to do that, we must make it as easy as possible for our companies to grow and decarbonize at the same time, and very quickly as well. And to that end, the new European Commission has recalibrated its priorities and is focusing on boosting innovation, investment and skills, and it's all underpinned by a commitment to simplification, as we have mentioned earlier today as well. And together, the competitiveness compass and the single market strategy form a coherent framework for the next mandate and the context really for this session. From 2020 to 2025, this session has served as a barometer for the health of Europe's SMEs in the aftermath of several crises. It's assessed their resilience, it's offered recommendations for recovery, tracked their progress towards sustainability, and also examined how best to nurture the entrepreneurial ecosystem that sustains and underpins them. And in line with the renewed emphasis on competitiveness, this session has been redefined, not just in name, but also in shape and purpose. So the focus has shifted from diagnosis to delivery. So what lies ahead for Europe's SMEs? Can they truly become more competitive in a global marketplace? And which actions must we take urgently and collectively to turn our ambitions into reality? Those are really big questions. And to help us answer these questions, I'm really delighted to introduce the panel. First, Professor Friederike Welzer, an original member of the Sustainable Enterprise Panel and the last night's brilliant Schumpeter Innovation in Enterprise lecturer. Emilie Proset, President of the Single Market Production and Consumption section of the European Economic and Social Committee. Keilani Hassin, founder and CEO of Istia and Young Energy Ambassador. And finally, I'd like to hand over the floor in order to welcome back Gerardo de Lutzenberger, our facilitator for the session, who will look back in order to help us move forward. Welcome, everybody. Enjoy.
Thank you very much, Nune. So, as Nune explained, this is the last panel, the panel we did last year. And last year it was a lot about the relationship between sustainability and competitiveness, okay? And we had the new commission, and the idea was also to set priorities for that. And this year we have moved to the single market strategy and the competitive Europe, okay, compass. And so this is the framework. And as all the speakers also this morning have said, the real challenge is to identify actions and concrete actions that can make this and boost forward the SMEs in Europe. So this is what we would like really to invite to discuss, and this is a participatory policy workshop. which means that we will have first our speakers and our panelists just give an introduction of the team, but we expect also input from you, okay, later on. So we will also involve you in the conversation, and we will see and also what kind of action can be proposed from this panel for the next years. And because we have only 90 minutes, less than 90 minutes, to be honest, at this point for this session, we also invite you later on, I will invite you later on also to continue this conversation at the Ideas Lounge, or also to send your ideas through Slido and your proposal through Slido to the Ideas Lounge. So this is it for now. And so we have, as you know, a very important panel here, and we have Frederick Welter, and you already know her, and yesterday with her lecture, and her the everyday entrepreneurship, she also invited us to look at all these matters with a different focus and shifting the focus. We have Emilie Prouzet, and she brings also the role of who is working to support SMEs, but also not only SMEs in this sense. And then we have the voice of an entrepreneur, which is Kilani over there, who is also, bringing his idea of what innovation, what proposal can be. And so let's start moving. And this is my first questions for the panelists. So what is the outlook for competitiveness of Europe SMEs in the next 4 years? Okay, and I invite, first of all, Frederica to answer this question, knowing that we spend always a lot of time in phrasing these questions, and the SMEs now, yesterday you challenged our definition as SMEs in this. So please.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think I'm down back to the diagnosis, because that is to the heart of what I am, like academic researcher. I'm talking from the perspective of German SMEs, but some of the challenges we've recently actually heard about from one of the surveys we regularly do, I think are unique, not just to Germany, but they are European SMEs. So what we regularly do is, I think for the past close to 10 years, is that we do a snapshot of the biggest challenges enterprises face. And what we actually, when we send surveys out, we normally, regardless of the study, we just include these 2 questions of what are the biggest challenges you face in your current work, and how would that actually impact the entrepreneurship and the business. I think, in a way, it exemplifies, with a few exceptions, the biggest challenge for SMEs, small businesses in general, or maybe in the European Union. If I were to summarize that in short, it's a challenging environment, a challenging business environment, challenging framework conditions, enterprise competitiveness and long-term development threatened, ? If I go down to what that actually means, the top 1 topic of the biggest challenges for the past 5 years has been skilled employees and demographic development. And I think this is not going to change. It's something which small businesses and enterprises have to deal with in the future as well. And if we talk solutions, then there are a few, but I leave that to the discussion then. The next topic on what the businesses told us, and that's been on top number 2 position for the past 2 years, is an increased competitive pressures. And basically kind of a general look at the business environment. What are they actually facing when they go into the market, when they want to develop the business? Followed by, and that is number 3 since 2024, and it's rising up rather quickly, challenges with digitization and artificial intelligence. And number 4 is, not surprisingly, shall I make you guess what number 4 is? Bureaucracy. Yeah. I think it's and you would think it's an evergreen, but bureaucracy is slowly growing up through the ranks. So it used to be number 7 3 or 4 years ago, and it's now actually number 4. So these are the top 4 challenges, so to say. In that same survey, we also looked at what do SMEs think about what is currently of little relevance to enterprises. And I think that is really interesting question here, because what it tells us is what SMEs don't perceive as something which is of urgent needs to tackle with. And that is why I'm saying maybe business development and enterprise competitiveness is under threat, because here we have innovation and business development. And if you think that it's of just to phrase it again, innovation and business development is of little relevance to the small businesses we asked what are their biggest challenges. If you think that through, what does that mean? It means they probably do not invest as much as they should be in the enterprise to keep up with the innovative developments and also to develop the business. I'll keep it at that. There are a few more on that list, but we can do that in the discussion.
Thank you. Emily.
Yes. Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay,
yes.
Fantastic.
I think so.
And thank you to the organizer for putting competitiveness at the core of the SMEs Assembly. The outlook of Europe's competitiveness depends on whether we get it right for SMEs. We have to decide now whether Europe's SMEs merely survive or truly strive over the next 4 years. And I'm optimistic as well, because I'm a true believer of the single market. Some people say I'm very optimistic. I'm very enthusiastic. I'm optimistic, but only if we tackle the fundamentals, if we give the right business environment to SMEs. We know SMEs still face high energy costs, complex regulations, skills shortage, all while managing digital and green transition. And despite that, according to recent data, we already see early signs of recovery. But this recovery won't last unless we close the structural competitiveness gap. And that means, and we all say the same thing, tackling the cost of energy, closing the skills gap, improving access to finance, finally completing the single market. And I'm going to focus on this last point. On this issue, the single market strategy shows us the way forward. Hubert Gams was mentioning this strategy. Why? Because it offers a new methodology based on 9 priorities, 9 key pillars. It offers targeted solutions for key problems. And yes, it's time to act, as Mr. Minister was saying. So what's the problem? I think the strategy identifies it as well. And it's crucial. The strategy identifies measures to increase political and national ownership of the single market. Because after 20 years as a lobbyist, I really think the challenge is political. Member states must regain ownership of the internal market. Because all together in such conference, we agree on the importance of the single market. We agree on the common reinforcement of the common solution. And then we go back to our capitals. National legislative anticipation, national pilot projects that go too far, non-compliant transpositions. All of this must stop. It is essential to respect the rule of law, the competence of the European Commission, of the Union, and the principle of subsidiarity. But we cannot remove all these obstacles and solve everything with a finger snap. That's why we must fully exploit the 20th European regime. Optional for companies, harmonized at EU level, a tool to overcome fragmentation without calling into question national legal traditions. But it cannot be limited to innovative companies, I think. It should be accessible to all, even if it is essential to design it following the principle, think small first. So I know, of course, the subject will not be easy, and safeguards will have to be established, but I think it is a reply to the situation we face today. Perhaps just a last point to conclude, because competitiveness today means as well resilience. And we stress the need within the ESC for a value chain approach to strengthen Europe's industrial base and autonomy. In the next 4 years, SMEs must be able to integrate, to scale up, and lead within this ecosystem, not just supply them. I stop here for now.
Thank you. And Keilani.
Yes. I think to answer the question, we have to see also the past 4 years. I mean, we jumped from crisis to another. It was difficult. We crossed the pandemic, the supply chain issues, and also an energy crisis. But yet, we have adapted and become more resilient. And I think for the 4 next year, we will be ready to transform that adaptation and resilience into competitiveness. What we see and the access that we have at Istia for competitiveness is, of course, improving the technology. We are in an AI race, and I think even non-technological SMEs have to adapt and integrate new tools. The second axe is skills. We need to give training to our team, to our SMEs owners, to help them adapt and learn about new technology, but also very classic things like business models, opening a small shop, for example. And regulation for me also, it's a way to competitiveness. For example, at Istia, we use one regulation called SRI, the Smart Readiness Indicator, which is a regulation on energy efficiency for buildings. And this regulation helps us to be more competitive because we can target more clients. So I think also regulation can be a way to do a great business. And the last part is green transition. For example, at Istia, we have used the green transition and the decarbonation to be more competitive. For example, we have been part of an European project that helped us to reduce the carbon footprint of our sensors by 50%. And that allows us also to improve the margin by 40%. That helps us to keep the price more low and become more competitive. So we use decarbonation as a tool of competitiveness, and I think it's also like a new tool for SMEs to be more competitive.
Okay, thank you. So it's time to pass to the second question, and the second question really it's going to the actions. Okay, so the competitive compass and the single market strategy set out the key direction and actions, no, and to support SMEs. And so, from your own perspective, and we have here an entrepreneur, someone who's working to support SMEs, and someone who is researching and studies SMEs. No, what action would make the greatest difference in strengthening the SMEs' competitiveness in Europe? Okay. Over to you, yeah.
Well, I have two bunches, two blocks of action. The overarching would be get the business environment right. I'm very thankful to you for saying that regulation is...
Yeah, the microphone is not
Yeah,
working.
okay.
Okay. It's not working?
No?
Okay.
Try.
Try again. Otherwise I'll take... Yeah.
Sorry.
Is it working?
No?
Nope. Okay. I'll
Use
take
this one, yeah.
I take this one then. Is this... Do I have
Let's wait probably there
It
to...
works when you were...
It works? Does this work?
Yeah. Yes.
It works. Okay. I have two blocks of actions. The one is the getting the business environment right, and I'm very thankful to you for saying that regulation as such is not something which is bad. Yeah, because the regulation is something which basically helps us to do things, and it helps businesses to do business. Looking at the two, the competitive compass and the single market strategy, you can very clearly identify these actions which could be done. I think one is definitely simplification, which pays off. So basically, one big bunch of action is doing something with what exists as regulation. So simplify those, reduce them if possible, make them easier. There is talk about the terrible 10, and of course the omnibus packages will help in kind of reducing and hopefully also simplifying that. Potentially the 28th regime, it very much depends on how that will work out, whether it's for all or whether it's for a select group, and will it make life really easier, and do we need it? I think these are some of the questions I have no answers to at the moment, but I think we need to discuss. When it comes to what should be done with regard to the regulatory environment, well, think of introducing fewer regulations in the future. Only introduce them if they're really necessary. When regulations are required, then put SMEs first, do an ex-ante check with them, not just the SME check as it's done, but really check with them. It's done in the Netherlands, for example. They have small groups of entrepreneurs talking about the new regulation. So check whether it's suitable for small businesses. I also think the regulatory sandboxes are a really good instrument to kind of test out how could you redefine regulation. And overall, I do think we need a more trust-based approach in the sense of that regulation is good, but regulation is a service for the businesses. It's not something to regulate them to the extent that we kind of signify distrust there. The single market is really important, also in terms of regulation. I've touched briefly upon the 28th regime, what needs to be done that it really helps. The only thing we know from studies is that the single market is the most important entry point for small businesses, and very many remain in the single market. So it's important that regulation helps them to enter the single market. The second point actually goes with my first top challenge, the demographic change and the lack of skilled employees. And the skills union mentioned in the documents, I think, is of great importance. It sets out the easier recognition of qualifications. I would say we need a still easier movement of qualified people. We also maybe can think about how can we mobilize, incentivize coordinated training approaches, because not all of the micro and small businesses can do that on their own, especially very small businesses. So those are some of the actions I could foresee here, and those are the 2 blocks of actions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Emily?
Yes. Well, I'm afraid I have the same focus. So, no, but it means that at least we have all the same understanding of the situation, that it's concretely a question of implementation. From the ESC perspective, it comes down to the 3 words: simplify, innovate, integrate. Simplification, we already said, SMEs tell us again and again, complexity is killing their time, the cash flow, and sometimes their ambition. And this complexity has been identified, as you said, as one of the terrible 10. One of the 10 barriers that most fragment the internal market and that we must combat as a matter of priority. So let's do it. I come from France, but it could be in other countries. It's the same situation in many of them. And France is at the top of the list of European countries that are the most restrictive for retail. I do work for retail. In terms of establishment and operations. So why? Surely for good reasons. Does it work? Not really, since national rules are updated every 6 months. So let's give a try to the European game, try and respect the rules of the internal market. As Enrico Letta was saying, even the best rules cannot fulfill their objectives if they are not applied and implemented in a smart and uniform manner. And the goal, as you said, is not deregulation, it's simplification, smarter regulations. That's why, for example, concretely, the ESC propose a unified, interoperable digital platform for EU lawmaking, using AI to identify overlaps and reduce red tape. Every new proposal should systematically undergo competitiveness check, SMEs test, and innovation stress test. Rules should enable entrepreneurship, not suffocate it. So simplify, innovate. SMEs need the means, not just the motivation, to invest in the twin transition. I can give you data, but the cost, for example, in retail, of using a software as a services solution to build an online shop is in between 5,000 to 20,000, but without operating costs, digital advertisement, etc., etc. Besides, we know that SMEs often lack expertise and resources to drive sustainability. So finance and skills. Access to finance remains patchy. So let's make it easier. We call for simplified application procedure, a one-page model for EU funding, and a stronger European digital innovation hubs to support digitalization, cybersecurity, and compliance. Skills are equally critical, and we fully support the fifth freedom, the free movement of knowledge. Europe must make lifelong learning and talent mobility real, so SMEs can find the skills they need. In the single market strategy, we, EAC, support the Commission goal to improve the recognition of professional qualification, you were mentioning it, to cut delays and administrative burdens. And finally, third, integrate. We must be more ambitious, as stated in this strategy. SMEs are the backbone of every industrial ecosystem. So we must help them move up the value chain, from subcontractors to leaders. That means mapping industrial ecosystems, fostering partnership between startups and traditional industry, and using cohesion fund to reinforce local infrastructures. So to sum up, removing the 10 major barriers to the market, meaning complex and national diverging rules, lack of recognition of professional qualification, or the proliferation of territorial supply constraints. But for me, what will make the greatest difference in establishing the right business environment for SMEs competitiveness in Europe is above all the will, the willingness, the political decision by member states to respect what has been decided in Brussels, and the one of the Commission to ensure these rules are correctly enforced. Thank you.
Thank you. Kelani.
Sure. I think we have a few action, and the first one will be funding. It's not a secret, but I think we have already the tools. For example, we can create Horizon Europe for SMEs to help them to get access to this framework and project. The second one is to realign EU funding back at VC with strategic priority of Europe. Because, for example, industrial SMEs are not really attractive for VC, but it's a priority for Europe. So we need to realign that. And also we need funding for decarbonation to help the SMEs to be more resilient and more climate friendly. The second axe is collaboration. I mean, as SMEs, we have sometimes challenges, but I know somewhere in Europe, there are SMEs that have the product that I need. So the question is where I can find that SMEs. So maybe we can create a platform to do a matching with different SMEs across Europe. And also the same for technology. We have a lot of technology that have been developed into Horizon projects, into cluster projects, cascade funding, for example. And sometimes it's open source. So basically, I can have technology that I need for free that have been funded by the European Commission, the European Union, but I don't know where to find it. So we need also that kind of platform where we can have trainings that have been made by all the cluster, the Horizon Europe program, and also the technology that are open source. And the last part is also dissemination into local area. I mean, we have a lot of incubators that have been funded by the European Union, and I think also their duty is to give the information about which program I can have, which tool I can use that have been made by the European Union.
Okay, thank you very much. So, I have a colleague, Sabine Gressel-Söder, she's there, And she's harvesting the conversation so far, so I wonder if we can see what is coming up and coming out from these 2 rounds of questions at the moment. We need to switch the screen to the iPad here. Okay. So this is what is coming out, and you may, if you like, you may even take a picture, because it's just anchoring some of the concepts we have emerged so far, and that you may refer during the work you will be doing together. So, pictures taken, yeah.
Here it is. Now we can see it properly.
Yeah, it's here, but it's a bit small, yeah.
Oui, je vois rien là.
So, yeah, we need to go back now to the slide deck, please. So we want now invite you to propose actions that would make the greatest difference in strengthening SMEs' competitiveness, okay? And in order to do that, what I would like, yeah, you would refer to this, of course. We invite to work with others in this room. So you may form a little group with whoever is sitting next to you, or if you can even look for someone you don't know, but you want to discuss with. And you think about the actions you would like to propose, then you can discuss this action with the others, no? And even just look at them, what they have in common, for example, what is coming out from them, what is also different from the different actions. And then you can agree on what are the most relevant actions that may come out from your conversation. And some of you should be ready to present the action right after, because we would like to listen to your action and also have the reaction from our speakers and moderators to them. So, and of course, if you have also a question for them, you may ask a question to them if you want. So, and at the end, if for any reason you couldn't present the action, so you would like, in any case, to make them be processed by, let's say, by the assembly, you will be able to send your action via slide or to the Ideas Lounge and to us as a team, and we will be processing them. I will show you how to do that later. So this is how we are inviting you to work, and you have 10 minutes to do that. So please, this is the questions. Talk to your neighbor, find someone you don't know, look if you have any interest in talking with someone else, and you have 15 minutes, to discuss. So please. The floor is yours. So if you would like to propose an action, just wave your hand. I will come to you with the microphone, or even if you have a comment or something, but just call me. Yes. And please tell us also who you are.
All right. Hello, I'm David Carr. I'm president of the European Small Business Alliance. I've also run my own business in the automotive supply chain for 47 years. I'd like to pose some questions to the panel. Is the EU bureaucracy too big, and creating regulations is only justification for jobs? Are there too many idealists within the bureaucracy with an agenda? And who is there to put the brakes on those idealists? Because the idealists create something that might be fundamental to what they've learned at university, but not practical for business. How many of the bureaucrats that we have within Brussels actually have ever worked in industry, business, and have a real understanding of what we in business have to put up with? And why do we always ask these questions that we've been asking today retrospectively instead of asking them before the legislation comes out. It's all very well now saying that, how do we make ourselves competitive? Why didn't we ask that question before? Thank you.
Thank you. Quite a lot of questions. I see you are taking notes. Thank you. Who else? Yes, please.
No.
Thank you very much. Just 3 concrete actions. Andreas Stefanidis from the Academy of Entrepreneurship in Greece. Number 1, capacity building to the entrepreneurs to think and collaborate, work together, because it's very difficult for 1 or 2 SMEs to win a big contract that is better to work together. So on the valuation process of a future procurement, to say that, like the consortium in the EU project, if you work 3 or 5 SMEs together, you have more points to win a procurement in the private or in the public sector. Second, cultivation of entrepreneurship skills on the public employees, because if they know the problem of administrative burden, many of them can find the solution if they think entrepreneurial, to see with specific KPIs how making things faster and simpler can support the SMEs, and cultivate cooperation mindset on the SMEs in order to export on the internal market together, empower their forces.
Thank you.
Thank you to all. Albert Colmer from Catalonia, Autoocupació, and member of Transeo. We have lost part of the DG growth speech. Then one of the things that will make the greatest difference in the stringent SMEs competitiveness is to save the third of companies, SMEs companies, that will fail, will close, due the lack of business transfer during next 10 years. There's a pandemic coming. 5 years, we have won one of the project, the awards, Reempresa, and we have told to us, this is coming. And we know that now the barometer in Finland shows that 1/3 of the small companies will close due to the lack of business transfer, due to the lack of succession. If we don't afford this big pandemic, all the other big wars will serve to nothing, because the increase of the competitiveness cannot start losing 1/3 of the small companies that has been successful from the boomers till now.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Jan-Philipp Büchler from University of Dortmund, focusing on hidden champions research and on innovation and technology transfers. We asked in our little group here ourselves the question if we shouldn't put more focus when creating centers of gravity for building innovation ecosystems. Let's talk about electric drives. We have several brilliant universities, research labs, and so on and so forth in ecosystems spread over Europe. Let's talk about biotech. This morning, while having breakfast in the hotel, I talked with one of the panelists this morning, founder of a biotech company. He says, in his last business trip in China, he said, I experienced a sheer mass of financial intellectual capital assembled and agglomerated there in a way we cannot match in Munich, we cannot match in Paris, we cannot match in Amsterdam. But if we would focus on centers of gravity in biotech in one hub in Europe, that could make a difference, because there we would create critical mass also internationally, globally, for attracting capital from all kinds of capital. So that could be something that could help SMEs to boost and generate and leverage growth then. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Jonathan Over from the Small Business Standard Association. And one of the other things that we discussed in our group was how important it is to educate and train SMEs that even if they operate in the local markets, they can shape standards and regulations so that they can have better access and more successful way in expanding the businesses. And we have the tools. We need to make sure we connect to them through Center of Excellence directly to SMEs, industry associations, so they can bring them to the discussions on what are the next standards that are going to shape the markets. Many SMEs, they don't need to be the next unicorn, but they can be leaders in the niche markets. And we can help shaping that through standardization. Thank you. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Yes. I'm coming just here, it's closer. And meanwhile, if you want to start also to send your ideas and proposal to us, you can use this Slido.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Charlene Lambert with the Women's Entrepreneurship Platform in Brussels. And our group was composed of people from the cluster area, from Bulgarian entrepreneurship, and from the Commission. And the first, we had 4 points actually. The first was increasing collaboration. And this could be done through flexible cascading funding so that entrepreneurs can use the funding as they see fit. The second point was more support with matchmaking partners, bringing partners together from the bottom up, also from the top down, but partners who can support each other in different ways, financing, collaboration in their work. This could be done through some kind of a flexibility voucher. The third point was the difficulty of lumping all the entrepreneurs together. So we talk about SMEs, but we forget that there's a huge group of micro companies that don't fall into all of these categories. We have small and medium companies, we have stock listed companies, so each of them really needs a separate program. And the fourth point is that we need to ensure that everyone is on board. We have everybody on board. This includes women entrepreneurs, migrants, minorities, who have a lot to contribute to our economy and to bring new innovative projects on the market. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh. Okay.
I moved here. Hi everyone, it's Marco Filippi here, representing an Italian startup. And in our roundtable, there were people from Sweden, Spain, Slovakia, and Italy, of course. Our resolution is that we want more young people to dream of becoming entrepreneurs. As per today, it seems like that only 20% of high school students wanna become entrepreneurs, while in the United States, it seems like these numbers is 2 or even 3 times higher. So we want to have a larger pool of founders or wannabe founders in order to even have more opportunities to create unicorn, gazelles, elephants, or whatever. The second point was that at the same time, we need to attract more talent from abroad. Indeed, if you go to United States and you are in San Francisco, you will have a pool of European, Chinese, Indian, US talents. And most of the time, US people like in the room are not even the majority. While here in Europe, if you take a look at any startup hub, probably it's going to be just European talents. The third point was to provide more equality between women and men. So it seems like women have less access to funding, and this is causing troubles. It looks like that this ratio is 70-30, so if we can get 50-50, it's gonna be better, of course. And finally, we should let the entrepreneurs be entrepreneurs, as they are wasting a lot of time in reporting, bureaucracy. We are not really working on our companies, but wasting time on other things, and trust me, I know what I'm saying here. So less bureaucracy and even easier access to public funding, as we heard today. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, the last one. Time is flying. Oh. Yes.
Oops. Hi. last but not the least. So I'm Silvia from Portugal. I'm an entrepreneur, social and environmental entrepreneur. And I was here with colleagues from Belgium, Germany, and Ukraine in associations and public servants as well. So I was the only entrepreneur in the group. I have a very specific suggestion, which is basically, I would suggest a kind of an Erasmus program. Meaning that entrepreneurs would switch places with EU regulators. So basically in 6 months' time, you would walk on our shoes and feel it really real economic and daily life of an entrepreneur on the field. So 6 months would be enough. And that would bring communication, empathy, and another thing that is important for me as a woman would be also entrepreneur, of course, to bring more attention to the need and create balance in terms of personal and professional life. I cannot remember a weekend where I have not had to work. So that is an important issue that needs to be addressed also in terms of EU policies and attitude, because sometimes policies derive into new regulations and we do not work a regulation on personal and professional life. We just need attitude and actions, okay? Another thing, I'm working with the textile industry and it would be very interesting to see the regulations that are coming out in terms of sustainability issues. I mean, it's a maze, it's a nightmare in terms of regulations that are coming out, and especially for micro companies like mine and so many others across Europe. So stop doing what you're doing and redo everything in terms of competitiveness, because that's what we need. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, yeah, time is really flying away. We need to close in 7 minutes. So if you have just one breath, and we close, okay? Yeah, but one breath. Be prepared.
Yes, so we have, so I will say that I am from Family Business Foundation from Poland, and we discuss it with our Polish friends, and we realize that we have a lot of mentors network, which are acting on the voluntary base. So I think that we need a support for this network, because people, entrepreneurs trust to each other, and they are really, they love to be educated by their colleagues. So mentoring is a key to the early warning, to the crisis management, but also to the education, how to be more resilient, and how to manage the family succession or business transfer. So we need to support these mentoring networks. And one more thing, we need to take care of the happiness index of the entrepreneur. Yes, because only by this we will attract the new generation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Martin Hock, I'm a journalist from Germany, so I'm trying to make this quick as possible. We talked about the big things, and maybe you should better listen to the suggestions that have been made than to what I have to say, because what we've talked about was for decades we're trying to get the common market right, and we've come a long way, but in the end we're not satisfied with what we do, and it doesn't seem to work. So how's that? We talk about too many rules. Now, thing is, the rules that are made in Brussels don't seem to really fit to what SMEs at the bottom need. It's the experience of Mrs. Horn, who's from DIN. And on the other hand, what about simplification? Now, when you're trying to simplify a rule, you don't need more rules. So in the end, you end up with rule making and making things more complicated, especially because down at the bottom, always somebody profits from a rule. And so he says, getting rid of rules is all very fine, but not this one. So I'll make a stop here. We talked about it more.
Thank you. Sorry for putting pressure on you. Please send your ideas and proposals through Slido, because we will harvest all of them. And now it's really over to you. And I would like just to change a little bit the order. So let's start from the center. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, my microphone is not working. Okay. Well, there is so many things to say. First, idealist. You have to be correctly when you have to support and to repeat, because lobbying is to repeat the same thing for a decade. You have to be idealist. I just want to say something. Keep in mind that when a new proposal is coming from the European Commission, it's based on an impact assessment. An impact assessment that has been made during 2 years. That's why so many times we say Europe is not going as fast as we want, but at least Europe is doing regulation based on impact assessment, and tomorrow on impact assessment including competitiveness test, SMEs test, and innovation test. I know that in many member states, in many countries, in one night you can table a proposal, a law, just because you have the good idea, without any impact assessment, without anything. So at least I give that to Europe. We try, and I'm not the European Commission, they try to have concrete proposal. First, second point, empowering forces, business transfer, fostering partnership. I have to say that everything that has been mentioned, I think, is already on the table. Recalibration of the Green Deal. We have many good strategies on the table, the Digital Europe program, etc., where your points have been mentioned and tools have been proposed. So again, I think it's a question of implementation and how do we implement them. And so I would like to conclude on one point, because it was part of my speech. In Europe, we have the Commission, the European Parliament, and the European Council. The European Commission represents the interest of Europe, proposing regulation or directive based on impact assessment. Members of the Parliament are representing citizens' interest. And perhaps we should act a bit more when we decide, who are our members of the Parliament. Do they represent really our interest? And then we have the Council, representing the interest of member states. And that's where perhaps as well we can work, because today there is a clear issue in between the national sovereignty and the European sovereignty, and what do you want to defend? What do you want to push for? So that's where I come back to my political willingness issue. And I will stop on that.
Okay, thank you. Would you like, Ilani?
Sure. I will try to answer some of the question, and I think the first one will be about young entrepreneurs. I think it was a great intervention, and in Europe we have the EIT. I think they're doing great work, and definitely they can empower the younger generation by training or program. I know they have some great program to jump on the funding. Definitely, I think EIT also can be a great structure. They invest mainly in grants, but I think it's also time to switch and to invest in equity. That means that the European entity will have the power to enter directly to the capital of SMEs. That means that we will invest in subjects that really matters for us. And to jump on the mentoring, I think it was a great intervention. We need, as entrepreneurs, to be mentored. And I think it makes the difference. You spoke about happiness, and it's very important for founders and SMEs, owners, to have support. And that means also to have access to mentoring. And we have entities, incubators, EIT, that can provide contact and do the matching with mentors.
Thank you. And last year we had a panel on burnout of an entrepreneur, and was really interesting to see how important is this point. And Friederike, over to you.
I'm not going to discuss or comment on one of the single issues here, because they are, as you said, they have all been on the table, and it's not new as such. what I heard coming through is somehow a commitment of us to Europe, and I think this is the most important thing. And before, I was sitting next to a very old friend and colleague, Dietmar Ressel from Austria, and he was a bit more skeptical, saying basically, if we don't make Europe work, and Dietmar, you can correct me, if we don't make Europe work now, it will never work, and it kind of will fall apart. And the commitment to Europe is important, and it was kind of symbolized in some of the actions you mentioned, where you actually thought across borders. And that is what I think is the most important issue, and it's also an issue of the assembly here, and where we actually sit together. How can we transfer this commitment into continuous action, and not once per year, but basically going on with that? And that is, I have no solution, but I like what I heard here in terms of the commitment on very different levels, and that brings me to, I do think the European Union has a future, but we need to, and I steal that from Emily, it's time to act now.
So thank you. We would like also to continue this conversation at the Ideas Lounge, which is right in front of the entrance.
Thank you.
And we will be also displaying the harvesting made by Sabine and all the harvesting of the session. So that's it from this panel. Thank you very much for staying here, and we will see you around. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. What a great panel, great session loaded with energy, and also thanks to you, delegates, and not least thanks to you, Gerardo, a very energetic, engaged, and even running performance throughout the session. Absolutely great. So now it's time, ladies and gentlemen, for a cup of coffee during the networking coffee break, and as Gerardo said, you can visit the Ideas Lounge. It's just right in front of the main entrance, but you can also visit the workshop room 3 for the retail and wholesale SME health check. And then just a little info about the upcoming workshops. After the break in the plenary room, we have the Forum for Scaling Internationalization and Cross-Border Trade. In workshop room 1, we have a policy session to look at the business case for standardization. And then finally, no, not finally, this is the third workshop, room 2, policy session entitled Towards a Culture of Preparedness, Empowering SMEs to Withstand Shocks. And then finally, in workshop room 3, IP for SMEs. So sessions begin in half an hour at 12. Enjoy the break.